Hi friends, today I'm here to give a book summary and a review of a book that I read recently. I normally don't do very detailed book summaries because you can always get the book, but this book is in Japanese, so if you're interested in the topic, it might be good to have a slightly more detailed summary, which I also have typed it out if you prefer text reading. It will be in the link below that you can just take a look at the text or to supplement, because I took notes for this, but I don't know how detailed. I just wanted to show you all the pictures, which is why I'm doing a video as well. And since we are talking all about Eikoku Teacup no Rekshi, the history of England's teacups, I'm drinking tea, obviously. So the tea today is Nuala Elia. This is actually my tea notebook, which I'm using to keep track of the tea bags, and now I'm starting putting loose leaves that I drink, and I'm getting an antique set. So this is Royal Veil, and the plate is Elizabethan China. I've been really wanting black tea because I decided to stop for a week, and that was not a good idea. So this is a 7-chapter book. It's not very thick, as you can see, but there's quite a lot of info, and the best part for me was that there was a lot of photos, especially since I actually just got into buying teacups about the end of last year, so about for a year now. Bought a lot more than I expected to, but so this is helping me to understand what's going on. So let's just start. Chapter 1 is on the introduction of tea culture into the West, and you see a lot of what we see, like tea bowls. So basically what you expect if you're looking at all these photos is that when tea comes in from China, there obviously wouldn't be any porcelain or pottery or any cups that have been made for tea because it's a new thing. So they would have imported Chinese porcelain and pottery at the same time. So it would be tea and teaware coming in from China, and that would have influenced the English as they continue on to develop their own tea culture and eventually their own style of drinking tea. So there is quite a lot about tea chairs. I really like these pictures of these tea bowls. They're really pretty, although now if you look at Chinese tea, we're going to have something that's a lot smaller, because we started with Gong Fu Cha, which I think, if I'm not wrong, it's from Ming Dynasty. So then they talk about the invention of Twinings. I have actually been to this shop. It's quite cool to be like, oh, I've been here, right, in the room. So then we move on to chapter 2, which is about the birth of the English pottery industry. So we start with tea gardens getting very popular, and then you have I think they were saying the first kiln. It's going to be from Chelsea porcelain, which the book says that Lord Cumberland supported, although I read online that it's a bit disputed on that. And then the rival Bow porcelain in 1747. So this is actually the 18th century. And you know how tea has this image of being very healthy and being helpful, which we know because it was introduced as a beneficial drink from China at the first time. So we have Wedgwood, and then the rise of Jasperware. I'm actually trying to find some this Jasperware. I've actually seen this on Etsy recently, and I'm so tempted. It's a little bit expensive, so I need to think about it, but the Jasperware looks great. And you're saying that they use a lot of Greek myths as motifs, so you do see the influence of classical Greek culture, which I think if you study history, you probably know more than me about this whole thing. I thought that was quite cool. Then there's a bit of the Boston Tea Party, and then the birth of bone china, which they mentioned was by Spode Senior, who started to develop this, and then he unfortunately passed away, so his son took over and perfected bone china, which is where we get, especially antiques, the china is very thin but it can hold heat, and there's a, okay, you can't hear it, if you clink it together there's a clinking sound, which I'm not good, something like that, I suppose, which I'm a bit scared of always doing. But they say that if you want to test if it's china, you should be looking at the thickness and listening to the sound. Okay, so that. And then the third chapter, which I'm just going through, is on blue and white, the rise in popular blue and white porcelain, which is actually before I started collecting teacups, what I thought was all antique teacups were like. So it starts with the Prince Regent, who is going to be George IV, and how he likes Imari pottery, Imari being a place in Japan. So there are some really gorgeous pictures of the Imari teacups. Honestly, I would want these if I didn't know that they were so expensive. I think I bought an Imari inspired cup. I need to check when I go back. So he bought the Imari, and then at the same time, England started growing tea in in their colonies. Then they have the willow pattern. This is a column on the willow pattern. Basically, there's apparently this very sad story about how there was a star-crossed lovers in China, like the daughter of a mandarin and a poor boy, and then they flew away, and then they had to get turned into willow trees because the father was chasing them. It is not supported in Chinese legend. I actually don't know of this until I read it. As far as people can tell, it was actually a marketing gimmick created by the porcelain factories in China. And actually, if you think about it, although they're trying to use Chinese motifs and to evoke scenes of China, which was quite popular around that time as well. It's not very Chinese in legend. Like, we do have I was gonna say Tanabata, about like star-crossed lovers having to meet once a year. My Chinese is just gone. I'm just thinking Tanabata all the time. But to say like turning people into willow trees, for me, it's very much more of a Greek mythology thing where, you know, Zeus or like some other gods will take pity on you and turn. I'm thinking especially of like I was gonna say willow tree, but there was another tree in Greek mythology which is not coming to mind right now. So I feel like that is more of what I would expect from that. So I don't think, like, just reading it and the fact that there are no sources, that I don't think this is a Chinese myth, even though, you know, they were selling it as such. And then there's a column as well on Earl Grey and like how, you know, the Earl Grey blend came about. This book, I mean, probably it wasn't from China because bergamot was not a flavoring used in China. This book was saying maybe influenced by Russia. I'm not sure. The book also doesn't give anything definitive, which is good because you can't tell. Then, so we get like the rise of why all these exotic Imari-inspired pottery, even from cups made in England, and Chinese-inspired pottery got very popular. And, you know, you do think that the British were expanding their colonies, and this is a way for them to sort of experience or taste the exotic overseas without leaving their homes. Then we have chapter 4, which is afternoon tea in the upper classes. And honestly, they were talking about, I really love this exotic bird from Minton, which apparently Queen Victoria loved as well, and it's something she bought. I'm like, oh, so beautiful. If I could see this, I'm sure it would be extremely expensive, but I do want to have it. And then, you know, talk about the rise of afternoon tea by the Duchess of Bedford. I still prefer the theory that it came from the temperance movement, but I do know that I think other people like George Van Dram also argue for slightly different theories, so there's no one like definitive theory as far as I know. And then we have some really gorgeous pictures of teacups used for the upper class, especially with flowers. So one thing I learned about flowers is that even back then, greenhouses wouldn't have been very it wouldn't have gotten plants, especially in winter, even if you have greenhouses. So it's very luxurious to have flowers. And in a sense, even the upper classes would have had difficulty getting flowers on the table. So to get around this, there were a lot of flower-related teacup patterns, although this is still considered very feminine as a design. But I thought it was interesting of how, you know, you use teaware to make up for things that you cannot bring to the tea table, given that the whole concept is as a totality, the tea table is a whole concept of, you know, having good conversation, bringing out appropriate drinks. It was originally served buffet style. And making sure that your teaware matches. And, you know, if you don't have flowers, then let's use a flowery teacup, especially since we're all like women. Apparently that was the thinking. We also end with the Great Exhibition, which was organized by Prince Albert before his death. Personally, I was more interested in this section on teacup handles. So we have like ring handle, square handle, angular handle, pinched handle. This is a broken loop handle, or in Old English handle, and then London, at the top is a London handle. Which, you know, sometimes it's very hard for me to try to translate it to English on the fly. Okay, then we go from upper class into the middle and working classes. And so basically, the houses wouldn't have been as extravagant, especially for the middle class, mostly for the middle class, as the upper class. So obviously, they wouldn't have wanted to use as extravagant teacups. It wouldn't have matched their interior. So the teacups for those people would have been slightly more subdued, but still, you know, really pretty and elegant. What I found most interesting from this chapter was actually the discussion of where high tea come about. So I've heard the claim that high tea comes from the height of the table, whereas, you know, like the upper classes would have sat around a low table and it was like a low tea, and high tea, they would be more substantial and sat at a proper dining table. But this one also has the theory that apart from that, it could also be because high tea has more calories, so it's high calories and therefore high tea. I don't know which one it is, but I do like the idea of this as an alternative. Then we have like more Lipton's tea, and then they have this really cute column on Mrs. Beaton. Chapter 6, which is the second last chapter, is on teacups and you know how it adjusts to new lifestyle. So we have the introduction of nursery tea, which is for kids, and you see that when it goes all the way down to kids and kids are playing afternoon tea, it is a truly part of the English lifestyle and English society by now, versus when it came in as this exotic, helpful foreign drink that you know people couldn't really afford. Now we have Lipton, who does like direct from Sri Lanka tea. So tea has gone down in price. It is more affordable for the masses, and so you see more like children also drinking tea. And then we have this two-handed teacups, which I've seen occasionally as you never understood. So it's apparently called a loving teacup. It would have started firstly for sick people who needed both hands to drink their tea, and then it became a lover's teacup, which I don't really get. Like, just take matching teacups. Isn't that what everyone does? Okay, but maybe they had different sensibilities. Then we have the arts and craft movement and Japonism. So you do see like kimonos making appearance, or you know, more Japanese inspired style of teacups, which it's not the imari, it's just, you know, scenes from Japan there. This one is a fan and a plum. This is from Wedgwood. This is from Wedgwood. So you do see like how teacups do reflect art trends and popular social trends of that time, which I thought was pretty interesting. The Victorian tea cake. I really like this one, which is like Pai ga Futatsu Atta Ohanashi, which is on Peter Rabbit. So yeah, the book actually has quite a few columns on different things, and like, you know how Anne of Green Gables, when they have the good china and Anne's not allowed to bring it when her friend comes and stuff like that, you know, and how Marilla treats her teaware. I thought that was pretty interesting to have all these asides inside. We have some fortune-telling teacups that they are showing. And like there are some steps on how people would have done the teacups, and honestly I don't get it, like in the sense that I don't really understand how to interpret it as well. Like, I was trying to read the instructions, but I was like very confused by this. I guess like I'm not meant to do this, right? And original scones, Stockholm trend. Then last one is on the future of black tea and teacups. This one has, you know, World War II, how teacups are so important. I do think these snack sets are quite cute. I've seen them on Etsy as well. So basically you have your cup and a plate. I do prefer a trio, mostly for photo reasons, but I can see how this will be very useful. I like this one on like flowers, and then how they were go with like Minton has a double stamp, so they weave in the ribbons and then the flowers. So you do see them like experimenting with different teacup designs. And I think my favorite part of this was when they go into Art Deco and Art Nouveau. Not so much, not just because of the explanation of the differences, but because of all these. Look at how gorgeous these handles are. I actually bought one that is like this, but the design on the cup is slightly different. So I'm really excited for that. I would like to get. These are all the flower cups. I'm excited for this. I would actually really like to get a butterfly cup one day, but I have seen some of them and they're like 200 Sing dollars online, so not very achievable. Yes, so I should just make do with these photos. Like, look how gorgeous these butterfly cups are. Then we have like how, you know, there are roses, and I really like this last column, which is on Miss Marple and tea, and it goes into like Miss Marple having tea at Old Bertrand Hotel and what it says about, you know, English tea. So this book basically has a lot of very interesting columns, mostly at the end of every every chapter, sometimes 2 or 3 columns in one chapter. So as a book, I would actually recommend this if you're into teacups and you can read Japanese, because firstly there are a lot of gorgeous pictures and you do get to see like, oh, different teacups from the different eras. I think most of the information is pretty good. I mean, it's not solely focused on teacups, which you can't do because teacups is so linked to tea culture and tea itself. So you do have to look at the history of tea within England and tea culture within England to understand how teacups have developed and the different patterns that have gotten popular. That said, the book sometimes isn't very clear on what is myth and what is fact. Like with Earl Grey, they weren't very clear. Or actually, more strikingly was the Blue Willow story, which just said like, let's summarize this story about how this Blue Willow pattern came to be without saying explicitly, probably made up. I mean, I know Japanese as a language tends to be a little bit more vague. Like it's not very. I'm thinking of like the Tale of Genji, where you sometimes you can't tell who is speaking. And I don't know if that's a feature, but I do think it was unnecessarily vague. They could have made it quite clear on whether this is a marketing story or it wasn't. I mean, those are small things, especially when it comes to origin of certain patterns, or the origin of Earl Grey as a blend. It just presents it as this is how it's said. Doesn't really make a comment on the veracity of it. I do understand why they are doing it, but I would have appreciated it, being a bit more clear, and maybe help to sort fact from fiction. Like, these are popular myths. Are there any is there any supporting evidence? I don't know. In this sense, the Tale of Tea did a better job, because they basically had they were very clear, if like you find this is where we found the first textual evidence. Within the prehistory of tea, they had like archaeological evidence. I thought that was better, but I guess in terms of like scope, this is not really a book that is going to have such a large detailed scope, or like, it's not very academic either. But I think as a foundation, for me it was very useful. I haven't really seen books on teacup history, so this is actually quite filling a niche in my tea library that I don't have. I do know that this charty, they focus on teaching about black tea in Japan. So they do have a new book coming out. I'm not sure if I'll get it yet, but I mean, I'm pretty happy with this. Minor nitpicks notwithstanding. So if you read Japanese or you want to practice, I don't think the Japanese here is very difficult. It's academic, but it's not like a light novel where the grammar goes off the rails. So it is worth picking up and trying. I think if you have what, N3-ish, you should do okay with a dictionary. I mean, I didn't need a dictionary for this, so not like when I read about Japanese courtesans, I need dictionaries for that. Okay, so that's my review and summary. I hope you found it interesting and you learned a little bit more about teacups, English teacups. And if you have any recommendations for books that I can read next, especially on the history of tea or teaware, while I'm getting to it, do let me know. I would be like super excited to check them out. Bye.